Greetings and salutations, everyone. Welcome back to the Inn of Planar Crossroads, and also welcome back to our Around the Hearth series, where you can grab your preferred beverage, sit down by the fire, warm your toes and footsies and all that type of stuff, while we discuss tabletop and other things that go along with it. So, I am Adam L. Spain with the Inn of Planar Crossroads, and you're here so you know where we are. And we got Dan, like we did this last chat. So this is part 2 of a chat about the Megaten series. So, Dan's from Avenue Studios. You got any announcements from Avenue Studios?
Pretty much. We're on Rumble again. I said last time, but we are on Rumble, so check us out there as well. Podcasts, wherever. And we got Jacob's Lab now, and Bomb Squad's the 2 Open Legend actual plays, and we will have some new content for Druid's Table coming out in January or February for Open Legend content, so keep your eyes out for that.
All right. And Levi is our resident spotlighter. Are you spotlighting the same thing, or do you have a different one this time, Levi?
I prepped one spotlight. It is Coyote and Crow. It is a interesting-looking RPG system and setting that's I'm in part spotlighting because it is Native American Heritage Month, and hopefully both of these will come out in November.
That's the plan.
Okay, well then, that'll be great. It is already kickstarted. They have plenty of money to get their project done. So I think it's worth following up on and trying when it's ready.
Okie dokie. And I'm interested to see how they work the map and how they worked the political system, because a lot of tribes did not get along with other tribes. So
yeah, I mean, like a lot of our, like a lot of the colonizer groups who make things work more or less today did not get well together. So there are ways to do it.
Yeah. So it'd be interesting if they use like a state system with a federalization, or if they do something different with the political system. But that'll be fun. I'll be interested to see how it looks. All right. So, Coyote and Crow, that was our spotlight. I think that is the only thing we have left to cover before we jump in, unless you guys got any other announcements.
That'll do.
That'll do, pig. That'll do. All right. Well, like we said, last time we talked about the Megaten series, and specifically the Shin Megami Tensei kind of spin of the Megaten on it. And we are now going to be talking about the Persona. Now, something I forgot to mention that is kind of in both is the trope and the idea that tends to come up of in anime. In anime, you tend to see this trope thrown around, not necessarily so much now, but it was definitely in the early 2000s and in the 90s, of teenagers railing against the machine and killing God. So, that is a thing. That is a trope that definitely emerged in the early 2000s, and I don't see it as much now. It's just kind of accepted that some of the anime and manga work out that way. But this is one of the series that came and influenced that. Didn't start it necessarily, but influenced it. So if you see similarities in it when you're doing your research for converting the Megaten series and franchise into a game, that's probably why. It's probably why. But now we're talking about Persona. So, Persona is much easier to convert into a tabletop setting, in my opinion. And that seems to be the consensus from everybody here. Because you have a party, and each of them have a specific thing. Yeah, big step up for ease of conversion. Here's a party. It revolves around a party of individuals, not just things you summon. All right, let's do that. It's a character-driven thing. So, the core ideas behind the Persona series, and you can leave your what you think are core ideas in the Persona series down in the comment section below. So, is the idea of personas that each person has this thing that they use and is associated with them and is their personal thing. The idea that of social links and those interpersonal interactions being very important for not just making the story good, but also empowering your persona, because it is a persona. And it is called that because it uses themes from, like, it uses tarot cards as themes for different things, like the Death Arcana, or this Arcana, or that Arcana comes from the tarot deck symbols. And you can have that as inspiration for characters if you want to, and theming around them. But also, it revolves around Jungian psychology. And this is the
I didn't know that.
Jung, Carl Jung. Carl Jung. And the idea of personas comes from his thoughts on persona and personality and different things like that. So if you're looking to do a mechanical not necessarily mechanical, but conversion of the Persona series, watching a video or two or doing a little research on Jungian psychology could be helpful. So those are 3 things that I wrote down as being core to understanding and converting the Persona series. Is there anything else that y'all thought was core to the experience that you would put out there?
I would like to put forth the concept of combat also, like, there's the social tying into the combat, right? Mm-hmm. But there's also the core point of, like, the combat is sort of manifesting and storifying real problems. So, like, it's not just, like, the social feeds into the combat, but the combat feeds back out into the social.
Okay. I gotcha. And that was really prevalent in Persona 5.
That's the one I'm getting that aspect from.
Yeah. The idea of the dungeons that you dove into were really people's minds that you were diving into, and you were changing their mind and their heart. They said changing their heart, but it's kind of synonymous in this sense. Changing their inner self with this exchange, with this combat. So, yeah. That's a good thing to bring up for conversion. Anything else before we start diving in?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. You know, because they'll never see it coming. Oh.
There he goes again.
Yeah. The Persona fans will know what I'm talking about. But, the setting for Persona can really be any kind of modern-ish setting, usually in high school. So, that is a thing with the Persona series. It's almost
but you could
always
have
in
university.
high school. That might be more fun. I mean, from a tabletop setting sense. Unless you like the idea of
like,
going back to high school.
Group.
Because they're so much older.
No, I played in high school. Like, I had a high school D&D group. Like,
you mean like that? Yeah. I thought
when I was a high schooler.
I thought you meant people wanting to go back to high school, and I'm like, I don't want to go back. I don't want to go back to high school.
Most of the people who actively enjoy RPGs, from my experience, don't want to go back to high school.
There you go.
It's pretty anecdotal, but, you know.
Yeah. And this is something that is definitely different culturally. So, we're talking about Japanese high school. So, I say kids, but really they're young adults, are more... you can live on your own in Japan.
Much earlier.
Much earlier than you can in America. And there's a lot of cultural things, so that may be something, if you do decide to do a Persona thing, to kind of figure out where your setting is, and then kind of tailor it to what age group your players will be. Because you can have young Persona users. Like Persona 3 had young Persona users. And really, the setup of Persona 3 with the idea of seeds, and in that game, there was this thing called the Dark Hour, where it was basically 0 hour, the hour, quote quotes, between 12 and 1, so the 13th hour. And it was when things stopped and everybody that couldn't use personas or didn't understand their psyche and stuff of what was going on was put into their own little box, their own little coffin-shaped box, and they were protected by the walls they had put up. But some people, walls would come down, but they couldn't use personas, and so they could be attacked or different things like that, or you could seek them out and stuff during that hour. And that type of thing actually would work well for converting that type of conceit into a tabletop one that's not revolving around high school. And also not necessarily trying to revolve around changing people's hearts, because the Persona series did shift up a bit on that. So
I would actually throw out, that makes me think, based on my limited experience, it seems like a core concept is, and this may be more in total, but for the Persona was the passage of time. And your decisions, you had to make certain decisions and time was going to pass, and if you choose one path, you forfeit other paths. I thought was, which I think translates very well to a tabletop game. But
especially with those social links, right.
That
is something that it could be kind of tricky to translate into a tabletop game, because a lot of the times in our tabletop games, the GM won't really keep track of time. Like they'll say it's been about this long, or it's been about this many, or it took about this long. And when I was playing a game, I actually did keep like a little pocket calendar, and I just said, "Hey, it's this month of this." So you can kind of use that if you want to. We can do a tips and tricks thing.
So, okay. I was about to go into, as a person who is bad at keeping track of time IRL, let alone in-game, I was going to have a semi-simple method about how I'd go about it.
Oh, yeah. You can do that. We'll reiterate it when we go into, when we maybe do a tips or tricks video for tabletopping. But you can tell it now, too.
So this is specifically for Persona, actually. My rule would be, the actual in-person session is 1 day in game time.
Yeah.
And in between each session, because like Persona has a lot of little downtime of like, oh, I went out to have coffee, I did this, whatnot. For all of those just basic, hey, which people did you spend time with? You have like 6 days out of game.
Okay.
Would probably... that would just... this is not for people who are actually good at keeping track of time.
Okay.
This is specifically for if you want to keep that aspect to your game in there, but you know you would be horrible at it. Like me.
Fair enough. I do think that's a good tip for it, because you can even use that in your regular game, of the idea of, hey, the story important stuff happens at the session, or travel, or whatever is going to happen in between sessions. That's a tip to keep your players engaged also. So,
Though I do like, specifically for Persona, and I think Levi and I both have more of a Persona 5 perspective, because I didn't see as much of the other ones, but that the clock is ticking. I like that, of saying, hey, a session is this day, you're probably doing the Mind Palace or something like that, and then your downtime activities that can be even rolled outside. I like that structure, because it seemed like, and again, I didn't get a chance to play the game, so I'm just going off reviews, but it seemed like you had that feeling of the clock is ticking all the time. And so I kind of like that structured sense of the sessions being that way.
You could even have, like, play-by-post in your Discord server.
For the downtime stuff, yeah.
I like that.
You like, if you have, if you're going to involve your Discord server, then you can have that be like you can title it what it would be in-game, like the chat log of or this or something.
Oh, and you could archive each day.
Yeah.
You would have, this is X days. Okay, it might get a little rough on players to have to post every day. You might have one chat for each day. I don't know. I'd have to think about how you go about that, but
that goes into the idea of, I guess AR is the buzzword they would use now, but it's keeping
augmented reality.
Augmented reality, or just calling it immersion. I mean, you could do that too, but the idea of having certain things in a game that also translate outside of the game, you could do that, especially if you're going to do because the setting can be mainly modern if you want to, because it has supernatural elements in it. It could mess with the technology if you didn't want it as the GM or LM to have too heavy of an influence. You could say that it doesn't work that way during, if we use Persona 3 the Midnight Hour, or if we use Persona 4 the Midnight Channel, or if we use Persona 5 in, I guess it was the Palaces, it doesn't work that way. So you could have that and say, this is you can look up this person or that person online and do all that type of thing. I mean, if you want to go really out, you as the GM could make a Facebook page for a fake Facebook page for each of those people that they're going to be palace that they're going to invade, and then you put little tips and tricks based upon what that person shares on their social media profile. This person is into this thing or this thing, so that means any puzzles will probably involve this or that.
I mean, if you don't want to go to the extent of actually making a Facebook page, you can just, have a listing of that sort of thing, and, the better they get on their research rolls, the more you give them from your little list you make.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's a thing you can do, but that's a lot more labor-intensive, and it's not necessarily specific to Persona, I don't guess, but you could still use it.
That's true.
For the Persona and the social links, that could be tricky to keep up with if you had to keep up with everybody. So let's try to keep it. We're going all over the place with our Persona. So we got the time thing. Mm-hmm. Keeping track of it that way, involving things outside the game to give the people interest in that, because it is a very socially motivated game with social links. So there's that to think about, and there's not necessarily as many diplomacy checks as you would think in the games. It's based upon your player's choices as a person, not as a mechanic. So that is something that I would encourage people to do if they're messing around with the social link system in theirs, is that don't have it revolve only around the checks that the people make for their stuff. And allow, if you can, people to involve themselves in, like this person here can function autonomously from the rest of the group in this social link because they initiated it, or they know that person in that social link already in their backstory. That can be good ways to mitigate the amount of work that you would have to do to try and incorporate an entire social network system of social links, because there's only so many. So you're safe, GMs. You're safe. You don't have to write out a whole town, a whole Tokyo's worth of Persona social links.
Right.
So one of the that would be one of the suggestions I would have with the social links. And if you do want to use the tarot card thing as a idea or characteristic behind that, and the Jungian psychology behind it, then let your characters either pick or draw randomly. Let your players either pick or draw randomly, depending on what type of game you're going for, from that. And then you can work that social link together. You can say, someone draws the Jester social link, or the Jester card, or the Fool, or this or that. Well, they then are going to be that social link for that. And as they develop as a character and interact with the rest of the group, that social link progresses. And there's usually like 10 in a social link or something like that, 10 steps. Mm. And as you go through those steps, character-wise, not levels, this is different. You can progress differently on that to keep it away from the mechanical portion, but still let it influence it. You could have those 10 steps, and when they get to the maximum, their persona levels up. And their persona can change form. Now, I still think they should be allowed to improve their personas outside of that social link thing. But the social links will give you a way to give them that little extra oomph that you want to give your players.
Oh, yeah.
So,
like, you could give your players an extra feat for a social link. So, like, have your normal progression, and then have social links be buffs on top of that.
Mm-hmm. Or you could do something, if you have a feat-heavy system like Pathfinder or Dungeons & Dragons, not 5e Dungeons & Dragons isn't feat-heavy, but, other versions of Dungeons & Dragons, you can give them feats that are usually reserved for monsters.
Mm.
That's fun.
True. Or, like, even monster abilities in most things.
Mm-hmm. So, that makes it fun, because kind of like what we were talking with the Shin Megami in the Shin Megami video, the idea of the players being the monsters, well, that's kind of what a persona is reflecting. It is reflecting the inner person and their inner desire or their inner strengths or weaknesses. And so, and they're usually themed. Like, I think Persona 3 was mainly themed around Greek mythology. Persona 5 was themed around, what was it? People, that's what it was. Famous thieves. Thieves.
Fictional and real.
Yeah, fictional and real thieves. So that's a way to do it. So having that theming is very strong when you do a Persona themed game. Because...
Which I'll throw out, circling back to our last video, superheroes.
Yeah.
Could definitely work for the persona.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, when you look back at it, it did have some influences in that. So,
yeah. That could be a fun one as well.
Yep. I could see that being a thing. But you have the personas that are going to level up and stuff. And keeping that level up aside, and the idea of the players have that monster type of setup, it could allow you to do some things like that shared action economy, if you want to do it that way, or different things along those lines. Because the players can just straight up attack with a physical attack, or you can have the persona doing something, and so that might be something that people can do, because that doesn't really hurt the action economy if one person's having to do something and another person's not. Like, there's that shared action. Mm-hmm. So you could have 5 players, and they get to pick who does what at this time. And it also has it's not a push turn system, it's a one more system, where I think depending on which game it is, if you knock if you make all of the other characters prone, the enemy characters prone, everybody can come in for a all-out attack, is what it's called, and do heavy damage. So, that's an option. If you guys want to do that. Making those buffs and debuffs important again.
Mm-hmm.
Because those get underestimated. Those get, I guess, underutilized would be a better word, in a lot of tabletop games, is the idea of buffs and debuffs. Even though they're really pretty good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and there is I love playing buff, debuff characters, and sometimes you're getting yelled at the table, why aren't you doing damage? You're not doing anything. I'm like, well, you're rolling with 3 advantage because I bolstered you, and anyways.
Yeah. What do you mean you're not doing damage? I'm making you better at what you do.
Yes.
You're not as good at what you do without me. Arr.
It's classic. I like the switch too between the persona stuff because I think isn't that how companion kind of works in 5e? Is you either choose if the companion does something or the main character does something.
I think it's more like the summons work that way.
Okay.
So
there's already kind of that thing in the system already. Easy
in 5e.
Mm-hmm.
And this would that's never made sense to me as a player in 5e on why it's
Agreed.
that way. That is purely a mechanical decision that is not motivated by lore at all. But that's my gripe against 5e on that.
Yeah.
But it makes sense in Persona because you are the person. That is your persona, so you're having to pick what it whether you're using it or yourself to do the thing. So it makes more sense that way to me, anyway. That's just me,
As he takes a swig.
Yeah.
Yep.
So the personas are pretty easy to do. The social links and the Jungian psychology is mainly about theming, but the theming is with the social link, the tarot stuff. But the social links, to build off of what I said before, if you have your characters have one of those, that means that's even less for you, the GM, to have to keep track of as far as social links. And you can have there's usually a few different endings in Persona, but that's mainly to facilitate the choices of the players. I think it's actually less important for a Persona conversion because you're already changing things as they do stuff than it would be in a Shin Megami Tensei, because they're not changing necessarily the whole world. They're changing a part of the world and what they're interacting with, and that's what they're seeing. So the implications of their own actions are what they're seeing, not their actions on everybody and everything. Now, Persona 5 does interact with the idea of a shared conscious type of the chalice, the Holy Grail persona that they have to deal with. And that's actually an outlier in the Persona series. Most Personas don't have that level of, hey, we're affecting everybody's hearts at the same time type of thing.
That's really diving into Jung right there. The shared consciousness.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, that's cool. I was thinking too, because there's you can do multiple social links. Like there's different ones you can level up, correct? So I was just random mechanical thought could be also like a earning a once per day item, something that does something pretty cool.
Oh, yeah.
Which, if we're linking it to the way we're doing the time, that almost comes out to a once per session type, So you could make it pretty good and know they're really only going to pull this out once per combat or something like that.
Yeah. And actually, if you want to, you can definitely tie that in with the, quote-unquote monster ability thing of, what do you get? Once per day dragon breath.
Right. Yep.
Okie dokie. Yeah, if you had the Greed Arcana or something like that, you've got to interact with this person who sees themselves as a dragon. And you go into their mind palace, basically. And you interact with them, and you change that about them to... Perhaps they start as a red dragon, and you're trying to work on them and deal with them, whether through combat or through otherwise, if you're using it as a social link. Probably otherwise if you're using it as a social link, to change those influences that may be affecting that dragon and make it into a gold or a red or a gold or a silver or a brass dragon, to use the monsters from 5e and Pathfinder.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, you could, I kind of like the idea of, a copper or brass dragon who, when you see, is, green, and the idea is that you, remove the tarnish.
Oh.
That's cool.
Yeah. And you could do that, perhaps, like, if this is a social link that someone is working on, like they're trying to make, you're interacting with an NPC, and they're actually a friend from your backstory, and their arcana is the greed arcana, and you're having to work with them, and every time you see them and you go into their dream, they're the brass dragon, but there's always these forces, these shadows outside that molest them in some way, like speak nasty to them or talk down to them, and you have to help them overcome those feelings. And as you do, the corrosion, the oxidation gets removed from the brass dragon until eventually they are no longer greedy, but jovial and happy and a giving person. So you switch their arcana.
Yeah.
Get it to
That's
10.
really cool.
And then you get more.
You invert their arcana.
You invert their arcana. There you go. Or whatever the Jungian appropriate psychology term would be.
So, like, in Jungian, there's, like, the dark form and the whatever form of most archetypes is how you would go that. You would, like, restore them to the better version of the archetype. But if you're going with the arcana, right, you, like, there's the face up and face down version. Not face down, but, like, upside down versions of a lot of those. And they have different meanings in that sense. So, like, you would take greed and you would invert that of the greed.
So, greed turns to, what would it turn to?
Actually, in this case, it would literally be called inverted greed.
Well, yeah. But it'd be fun to give it a name.
So, what you would probably do is you would take a different arcana, right? You would say that, oh, they're the greed arcana. And then what you would reveal is that they were truly an inverted X, and then show that they were really something, and that it only looks like greed through the inversion or something.
Okay, so there's shadow. There's the two parts of the personality that you're trying to help with. Yeah. And so they change from that persona, from that arcana, from that negative arcana to a positive arcana, and offer you some kind of boon. With their
that change.
Because Persona is about the power of friendship. So
classic.
So there you go.
In an enjoyably literal, I also really love the imagery of, like, you take the arcana of greed from them and give them a positive arcana, and you literally, like, dropped gold statues on someone as an attack.
Yeah.
It's really on the nose, but I feel like extremely on the nose is part of the fun of a Persona-style game.
Yeah. Well, because the things that we consider to be on the nose are that way because we think of them that way in our mind. Like you thought of somebody dropping.
You personified them.
Yeah, you personified that in
Ding ding.
So
that's cool.
So. Yeah, I like that idea. I like the idea of taking the social links and either inverting them. It depends on how close you want to stick to the Jungian psychology. Either inverting them or giving them a new positive aspect to represent that. Instead of greed, instead of avarice or greed, it's something else. Like charitability, or there's another word for it in my mind, and I'm trying to think of it. But it's not coming to me. It'll probably come to me when we're done. Maybe in the bloopers.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And there is also the concept that, like, when you get rid of the greed, you might not even... The thing that might not come from it might not be like the positive might not be the inversion of greed, but they might go from, like, greed to normal, and a different trait could go from neutral to right, because say that there were the other issues, and part of the reason they were greedy is they needed it for X, and that negative influence is gone. The tarnishing aspects, some other element of their character may be able to shine through.
Okay. So that dragon can literally become something completely different.
Because, like, in this case, like, it would be a dragon is defending the horde because there's the perpetual fear of losing it all. And part of what you show is that you and the friends are always there for them if they do fall.
Yeah.
So the dragon, like, maybe in the end, it's not that the dragon is dead, but like, oh, it'd be really cute to have a little dragon on your shoulder.
Oh,
because you shrank their greed.
You shrank their greed. Oh, and so you get a dragon breath from that little dragon once a dive into Tartarus. That is
because it gets all tuckered out. Because it's only so small, it can only breathe so much.
Oh man,
I like
that was really hot. I'm tuckered.
And then it curls back up in your bag.
Yeah, or on your shoulder or something like that.
Well, it's super tired and it doesn't want to get smacked by all the scary stuff going on.
Fair
so
enough.
It sits on your shoulder until it does its big breathe, and then it gets tuckered out and it crawls into your bag.
Yep. I think that's fun. That's pretty fun, especially for people who like to collect things of significance. Most of my characters don't necessarily care about, when I've played, they don't necessarily care about the wealth of it. They care about their what that means to them, and that's a big deal for the game. Like, if you're going to do this game, you have to care about. If you're going to do a Persona game, you have to care about the theming and the psychology of it. You have to actually care about these NPCs. So,
and like, you need player buy-in.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I do like. I mean. I always love twisting backstory into a story, and you have to do it with the personas, and I'd love
everyone
seeing
has to bring forward.
Yeah, having sessions dedicated to maybe the other players going into one of the players' mind palaces or something like that, depending on how your story goes.
Yeah, that was something I wanted to point out, was that if the players also have their cards, their arcana, their tarot. And that means that you as the LM will see this character developing certain ways, and you can say, another palace appears in the city. It's
cool.
It's the Fool Palace. And they're like, wait, that's meta. They're like, wait, that's my persona. I don't know if I'm ready for my character's ready for this stuff. The LM says that the palace has appeared. What will you do? And you can have multiple palaces active at a time, and that's where your timekeeping kind of keeps up, and you can kind of adjust it.
Right.
So you, as the LM, could say that.
I would definitely love to have, like, with each player, have discussed out what a mind palace would look for them. Right, I want them to give me things like, okay, what are elements from your character's backstory that would show up in here? What are... Because I've played in some groups that are very much so, like, people who know some of the styles of character arcs that might be useful for their characters. So, like, it's actually the group that I've played in a pseudo-Persona game. It was a mixture of, like, Persona and JoJo's Bizarre Adventure.
I mean, that's kind of not far off. Just one is very much more about, but, I'm just...
So, like, the magic system was JoJo's, but the personality and the IRL stuff being tied back into the psychology of it was more Persona. But, like, this idea of not just telling them what their issues are, but actively having them discuss with you, like, your characters need to have issues to work through to be part of this game. Tell me what they are. Tell me what cool imagery we can do with that, and I will build a real interesting mind palace around these things you give me.
This is the type of game that really benefits from that personal touch to the setting, to the palaces and things.
And then you have them co-DM the session where the other players go in their palace.
That'd be interesting. It's, if you look at the way it was handled in 5, I think it was. they actually did go into one of their players' palaces, Futaba. They went into her palace to deal with her hikikimori tendencies, her loner and shut-in tendencies. And so that's not, if you want to do that with each of your characters or just have that kind of sitting there, you can set that to the side and watch how they did that in Persona 5. And that's a way to do that.
Well, and I like what you were throwing out too, Adam, where the temple comes up and the player might not know if the character's ready to or not. And mechanically, from Open Legend standpoint, I was thinking, well, if you choose not to and time continues to pass, you might gain an additional flaw because you haven't dealt with it. Mm-hmm. But maybe if you do deal with it, you could earn a perk or something like that. Mm-hmm. I like that.
Yep. That's something that would be really useful for doing it that way. Is you want to have that mechanical reward motivating the player, mm-hmm. but that character may be reluctant, and Persona's much more character-driven than plot-driven, mm-hmm. whereas SMT is more plot-driven and less character-driven. And so you have this story you're telling in Persona, and these are the characters in that story. And so those characters are going to interact with each other, and that's why an everyday setting can be useful for telling stories, but not for having much of a plot. So, mm-hmm. because it's every day.
Right.
So if you can work around where you have the characters with their not necessarily their flaws, or maybe they start with flaws and they start with more flaws and remove those as they go up their social link. Mm-hmm. If they're the player, you wouldn't necessarily do that with the characters on the actually that they're helping, but you can mm-hmm. do that with the player, and the player removes some of those extra flaws as they go up, and then their mind palace appears like about halfway through their social link, mm-hmm. and you're keeping track of the social link. Mm-hmm. Like all they can tell is that a flaw has necessarily disappeared. If you want to do it that way, you don't even have to. You can keep it a total secret on how far they are up through the players' social links to make it more spontaneous when their palaces come up. Mm-hmm. And neglecting those palaces will either make the NPC harder or not as willing to talk to them. Mm-hmm. And in Persona 3, they got rid of it in other Personas, I think, but in Persona 3, they could actually invert like Levi was talking about, that you would invert the social link to where you would have to basically make up with that person before you could start progressing on their social link again. And you could actually fail a social link. So that would be interesting.
That's cool.
If you went into their mind palace and you failed, because this is one where you can say, well, you guys woke up and you weren't able to complete. You lost your whatever loot that you may have found or something like that, but you wake up. That is a way you could run this one. Mm-hmm. And say something's wrong. The next day that they start interacting, they don't see whoever it is. They don't see Sakura at school the next day.
Yep.
She misses her first period class the next day or something like that. You could really start to pull on those heartstrings with the players. If they like Sakura, they're like, oh, but what's the matter with Sakura? I don't know. What did you say to her the last time you were with her? She asked me she asked me about this thing, and I was like, no, I don't really know. And it was like, well, how did she take that? And it was like, so you have this interesting thing to do. Though there may come some blame if everybody's not together at the time when they're talking, and they're like, dude, you screwed that one up. Yes. What are you talking about? She was fine. We were just talking. So, if you have an LM that can work the psychology into it, that's really good for this type of game. Mm-hmm. And so this idea of the mind palaces and using the tarot Jungian psychology with it also does present a clear ending to the campaign if you want it to have one. If you want to make a campaign out of this, you're making your way through the deck, until you reach the Judgment Arcana, or you've completed it, and now you're having to deal with this overactive Fool Arcana that is way too developed because you didn't do anything with it this other time when you were supposed to be managing your trip, and the group wasn't working together. They were all they got too focused on everybody working the same social link at the same time. Right. They got too paranoid because of what happened with Sakura, and then now they all focus on the same social link at once, and now these other social links are way too developed, and bad stuff's happening.
I like that. There's also replayability in that too, that different choices will end up with different cards at the end too. Mm-hmm. So you never know what's going to get left behind this time. Mm-hmm. That's cool.
So the goal would be to complete all the arcanas, or the whatever you want to say, the psychology portions of it. Complete all of those before the school year's up, or before this year is up.
Nice. Yep, I like that.
Because it usually works around the school year in Persona. But if you're doing with adults or older players in college, older game characters in college, you could do it where it's, hey, you have until the semester ends, or you have until this year ends. Mm-hmm. Either way.
So that's cool. Like it.
All right. Well, we're getting pretty close to time on this particular meeting. Does anybody have anything that they want to say specifically, including you watching or listening? You can leave your questions, comments, or observations down below. But what about y'all on the chat?
Have fun with this. I don't know. I'd like to hear stories of what people do with this, because there could be some really dark, twisted delve into it's getting a little too real.
Oh man, I did a video one time. One of my first videos was Daddy, Where Do Characters Come From? And it talked about how characters come from aspects of your own personality a lot that you either like or dislike. And so that could be tricky. Is that someone just makes a character not thinking about it, and they put in one of the flaws that they don't like about themselves, and without even knowing it, and then they have to start dealing with that in the session. Man, that's like therapy. That's roleplay therapy right there.
Get some good healing tears going. Yeah,
I didn't mean it. But my mom always said, or but Dad told me. They told me Santa Claus was real.
I guess this is, I think, to put in, if that sort of thing, really comes up in session, I think it's a fair enough thing to take a break and double check that people are okay.
Yes.
Yeah. And some people might use that moment to take a time and work through that. Work through it through their character. Because roleplay therapy is a thing in psychology, so.
It is.
All right.
Cool.
Okay, anything last from you, Levi, before we head out?
Keep good notes. This really needs notes.
That's
Persona wins, advice. Yeah. Keep good notes on this one. Okay.
Or cheat like me and record it all so you don't have to.
Yeah, but then you gotta watch it all again, see?
Yep. Yeah, it's true. I do it.
So, all right. Well then, I guess that means that we're done for our Persona and SMT discussions. We hope you enjoyed them. There are other things within the Megaten franchise, so if you liked this, we can play around with it some more if you want to, or we can go to another franchise that you like. You can always leave that in the questions, comments, observations portions below. And, as always, have a great day. God bless, and enjoy. Bye.
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 This content was made possible by travelers and viewers like you. Thank you.
I just gotta banish the dog.
Oh.
Okay.
Now it's just gonna scratch and stuff on the door. Like, hey Dan, what you doing? Hey Dan, what you doing? Hey Dan, what you doing?
He senses my alpha dog, so
oh.
He kind of looked into it. He's like, never mind.
Man, I look different every time that webcam comes on.
And so, right, dude, you got the like gold teeth right now. From my perspective, it's looking so good.
Yeah. I'll show myself for the. Hold on, let me show myself for the bloopers, I guess. Yeah, there you go. Now y'all see what they see when we're doing it. It does not look like what y'all see. I'm glad I did a different layout.
It is a different color every time too. You're very red today.
Yeah.
It's demon. You're on fire. You're getting in the zone.
This one's my persona. I'm fiery. Hey, well, when you look up the root of Adam, the word in Hebrew also means ruddy. So, there you go.
There you go.
All right, I'm switching it back. I can't look at me like that. Man, I got some venison chili downstairs that's percolating for tomorrow's church lunch, and it's like,
I'm smelling it.
Yeah.
Oh man!
But it's got to percolate overnight. To get real
patience. Good. That's. I hope I get opening day Saturday. Really hope we get some.
Yeah. Well, this was some church member was cleaning out his freezer for this year, and it's like he gave me some, and I was like, "Yeah, take some venison." I didn't even have to hunt it. That's some good stuff.
Oh man, yes. We do breakfast sausage with it. It's so good.
By the way, speaking of Avenue Studios and Bomb Squad, I don't know how far y'all are in that. Has Austin picked a new character yet?
He has, yes. Yeah, so it'll be around, I don't remember. It'll probably be in January or something that it'll go public.
Oh,
man.
Yeah,
I know. I'm sorry.
See how y'all are.
I can't keep
painful
up at all.
Yeah.
But it's good. It's a good character. It was fun to build it with him. I like it.
Okay. All right. So we've got that.
Patience, just like the chili. Patience.
Yeah. It'll taste even better if I let it stew a bit.
Yeah.
All right. Y'all ready?
Yes,
y'all
sir.
Ready for this?
indeed.
With his gold teeth and everything.
All right. Is that gotta go in the bloopers? Hold on. I'm gonna click on myself. Y'all ready for this? Okay.
So good.
Bloopers done.
Nailed it.
All right. I gotta get myself out of here. I don't like looking at that. How do I do that? Gotta go back. Change layout. Spotlight. Sidebar. Well, now I done something.
As do we all.
This is why you're the one who's doing the recording and making the video, and I'm just sitting here talking.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Adam, for
Yeah.
It's always nice.
Now I done annoyed myself.
Oh,
I see what I did. Now we got it.
Awesome.
I had pinned myself to the front. And I don't need pin to the front. Okay.
Awesome.
Oh.
Thanks, boys.
So, I thought, since I was like, you know what? We're talking about Persona, and we're talking about Law and Order endings, and we're talking about different endings, good and bad. Someone did request the alignment systems and the alignments and discussion on the alignments.
Okay.
So, I wanted...
Toilet paper meme. Best one I've ever seen.
Oh, no. I'm lawful good on the toilet paper.
Yep, me too.
Lawful good on the toilet. There is a way to do it.
Yep.
There is a way to do it that's right. Of course, I mean, you can set it... I guess if you just set it to the side, it doesn't count. So, if you don't have
wasn't that like true neutral or something? You just set it there.
I mean, that's also a viable option. So maybe I'm lawful good troll. I don't know.
Good. Yeah.